This is the Goal Talk Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 8 of the Goal Talk Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about unlocking your employees' true potential. With me today, I have our Vice President of People Success here at Wordstream, Lucy Lemons.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited that you're here. Lucy heads up our entire People Success team. I'm going to take a stab at what I think you do, and then you can clarify and correct me.
Great.
So I would say that your team, you head up a team that is in charge of benefits, talent acquisition, so hiring, and like the learning side of it, so training new people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We do all those sort of foundational HR things.
Yep.
And we also strive to help build the culture here and really influence it to ensure that we're an inclusive workplace. So all those functions, and then with that sort of mindset.
Awesome. I love that.
We believe that if we can do that and we can create excellent employee experience, we will therefore help all of our employees create excellent customer experience. So that's why we're here, really to influence the customer experience ultimately.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love the way that you look at that. And I do want to note that the team that you head up wasn't always called People Success.
That's correct.
We were an HR team for a while.
Potentially, and then maybe a people and performance team. And, there's a million different names,
we
right?
Did a couple iterations.
People, yeah. And I think what I love about Wordstream and the executive team here and employees here is that we understand that people and a people success function really has an influence on the business in a way that you might say traditional HR hasn't.
Right.
It's all critical. All that stuff is super critical, but it's also this, how else can we partner with the business to ensure that we're delivering for the customer?
Right.
So that's that mindset.
And is that why you wanted to kind of go away from calling yourself a HR team, because you wanted to influence more than just, providing healthcare coverage?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. I think, and this is, you hear, like I said, you hear people ops and people in performance. And,
right.
And there's a lot of different names that organizations use for their traditional HR function. And it really is about that organization and what's best for them, right? So it's some organizations, HR works.
Makes sense.
For an organization like ours, where what we're doing is working with so many different customers all over the country, a really diverse set of people, we need to be thinking about it a little bit differently.
Yeah. And I think it's also interesting to note that as we were a small business and a startup, we did, as we brought in HR, because we didn't always have it.
No.
But as we kind of got to that critical mass where HR was needed, we brought it in. We tried things out. As we grew, we realized we needed a little bit more of an all-encompassing model. And that's something that you kind of helped build. So I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting.
Yeah.
I love that I was able to join the team. It's been about 18 months now.
Yeah.
And I love that we've been able to build what we've been able to build.
Yeah. It's really exciting. So how many people do you have on your team?
We're 9 people now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So Wordstream is about 300, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So a 9-person HR team is great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it does those functions you talked about. It's talent acquisition, learning and development, business partnering, operations, and we also own the office experience here. So
okay, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
yeah, absolutely. So when you think about, I talked a little bit about employee experience just overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
How satisfied, engaged are all of us so that we can deliver for
Yeah.
our customers. A big part of that is our office space and what it is to come in here every day, and do we have the tools we need to do our jobs effectively? And so the office experience team is responsible for that.
And the environment that makes us happy enough and feel good enough to provide a positive experience.
Yeah. And is focused enough on our customers. So when you look around our space, we have our core values, which is it's an internal thing, right? We have our core values, but we also see our customers on the walls. We see quotes on the walls, and we just recently did a refresh and ensured that we built the customer more into our space as well.
We have a big mural with some testimonials of clients that we all know and love. I think another really cool thing to note here is that we do a couple customer-facing events every single year. So I think we have 4 total right now. We do 2 Wordstream Lives, which bring in a bunch of our customers and some people that aren't customers, but just in the space. And we talk about different topics, and it's more of like an educational experience for them, but a really great way for us to get in touch with our customers and talk to them. And then we do more of a learning event twice a year called the Employee Roundtable, which we will speak about a little bit more. We're going to be talking to Kim Castings. Yeah, so she does all of our like customer marketing. So I'm sure she'll talk about those events a little bit more as well. But it's really cool that Wordstream is so, focused around the customer and making sure that we're the best we can be to provide that experience, because I think it's important.
Yeah, it's critical. I mean, that is why we're in business. So.
Yeah.
If we're not thinking about them, what are we doing?
Exactly. It's a good point. So talking about employee potential.
Yeah.
What does the term potential really mean as an employer, and do you look at it differently as an individual? Because even as a small business owner, you're still an employee, and you still have your own career aspirations, and you have your own goals. And even if you're an entrepreneur, you might think about your own potential for what you're going to do and how you can kind of grow that.
Yeah.
So how do you think about it?
Yeah. So it is so individual.
Yeah.
And not only is it individual to the person, but it's individual to the organization or the small business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to start by just this idea of how I coach people to think about where they are in their careers and what they want out of it.
Okay.
So whether that's an entrepreneur or a person in a larger organization, but in different phases of our lives, we need different things out of our employment experience, right? So sometimes we need a paycheck.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need a new experience to round out
like a learning experience.
Yeah, learning experience. Sometimes it's, I just want to be really satisfied with what I'm doing. I want to do something that I'm passionate about. I don't know if I'm going to make a whole bunch of money or what, but like I want to do this, right? And I think so that's for individuals. Then particularly if you're a small business owner, what phase of the business are you in, and how much can you for yourself develop in the ways you want to, and how much can you provide that for your employees? Some of your employees are going to be those people that you meet and you go, oh man, this person, like they can do whatever they want, right? So whatever it is in their phase of life, if they want the paycheck or they want a new learning experience, you're going to be like, I want to clear the way so that this person can do whatever they need to do. The sweet spot is when the business opportunity and the person's skills and where they are in their life and what they need out of their job all meet, right? And you're like, that's amazing when you give people the opportunity that they want and need. For me, when I say like, oh, you meet that person and you know the potential they have, it is about sort of not just what they know, but how they go about the work, right? Okay. Are they flexible? Are they curious? Does their approach align with the values of your business and your organization and your customer? And again, that's different for every business, right? So a high potential in one organization may not be a high potential in another, but just really understanding how the person approaches what they do, because you can teach skill, like for the most part, but the concept of like how does this person show up and how willing are they to do what we need to do to deliver to the customer?
So I have an example here that I'd like to talk about, just in my experience. Yeah. So when I was 20 and still in college, I had been working in restaurants forever. I was working at a pizza place. I had a friend who worked at a high-end steakhouse. And he was like, listen, he was actually friends with like my older brother. So he's like, listen, I'll help you out. I'll get you a job. Yeah. I'm like, great. I would love to work in a high-end steakhouse over a pizza place. Yeah. So, and it wasn't like a takeout pizza. It was like a sit down. But anyways, so I was still serving. So he got me this interview, and I walk in, and the manager at the time, still someone that I'm very close with, goes, we're in the interview process and we're talking, and our conversation just kind of like naturally flows. And he goes, okay, great. So what do you know about wine and steak? And I said, I know absolutely nothing about wine, and I know that steak comes from cows. And he was like, okay, great. I ended up getting hired and became a trainer within like 6 months, I believe, worked there for 5 years. Yeah. It was really great. But as I became a trainer and as I kind of understood the process a little bit more, their philosophy was we hire the person and the personality and the skills we teach. And they have this like really rigorous training process. And basically if the person isn't willing to put in the work and learn the skills, they don't make it through. Yeah. And if you are, combined with your personality, you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really, really cool way to approach potential, because you look at where that person is, if they have that drive and that energy to learn more and to really bring themselves to the role, along with their natural kind of state of how they operate and how they work and how they interact with people. And obviously this is more of a tactical role. It's less like super career progressive type situation. Just restaurants are different. But yeah, I think that's like kind of goes hand in hand with what you were saying. I loved learning that, and I think it made me approach how I look at, potential and who can be successful. It's more about like drive and how much you're willing to put in and get out of it.
Yeah, and a couple thoughts on that. Because we talk a lot here about creating a diverse and inclusive workplace, it's really important that as we bring talent into the organization and as we think about developing that talent and promoting that talent within the organization, that we make sure that we are thinking holistically about someone's potential and not just do they have X, Y, and Z experience, or did they go to this school, or did they, have they had this professional experience? Because talent comes in a lot of different forms, and so it's really critical that you do have that sort of like open up your aperture to say, like, where could we get this talent that might not be a traditional place? Yeah. The other thing that's really important to think about is high potential people. The X factors that help people be high potential are exactly what you're talking about. The drive, the willingness to learn, flexibility is something I mentioned earlier, connection to the customer if that's important to your business. But there's also a downside of that, right, which is they can be too aggressive in what they take on because they are eager to learn and to please. And so it's important, if you're managing a high potential and high performance person, that you're also being mindful that you're calibrating their workload, and not to say you shouldn't, keep giving people things, right? They need stretch, but just also know that for those who are very ambitious, sometimes they can get in a little over their head, and make sure that while they can be super talented, there are moments when they're learning something new that you need to provide more guidance that you might have at other times.
Right. And I also think that, we're all human, and as we all try to take more things on and learn more things and do additional things, there are breaking points. So if we continue to give people new things and stretch, it's not going to stretch forever. There will be like a point where it just so if there's not, again, like you said, the additional assets and support and help and education there that you're supplementing. One thing that you talked about was not always, gravitating towards people that went to the same schools or have the same background or have XYZ experience. I think that that's a really important point when talking about hiring people for a specific role. Like, we have a large team of people that do a very similar thing, whether it's sales, our in-house agency, our customer success team. Those people all either, sell a software, solve people's problems, or they are helping to, drive success in accounts through PPC. So I think that when we're hiring a lot of people for a similar role at different levels, it's really interesting to bring in people with different backgrounds and different experience, because it leads to more diversity in general, but also more diversity in how we approach problems and how we think about things. I think if we're like continuously looking for the same person over and over and over, there's a big risk of like groupthink.
Absolutely. And we talked about this a little bit before, like, our customers are all so different, right?
Exactly.
Small and medium-sized businesses, entrepreneurs, like, and so for us,
everyone.
They're everyone, right? Which is so amazing. And so for us to it's important that we reflect that population and the diversity in that population, diversity of thought, location, all of that is really critical for us to be able to have empathy for our customer and provide them what they need to grow their business.
And additionally, the providing an environment internally where there's the flexibility if someone's working on an account, or on the marketing side, if we have like a campaign that someone wants to pull in, but they don't have, they think that it could benefit from a different experience or a different set of eyes, we have that super inclusive environment that would say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you have any other thoughts? And if they do have other thoughts, or they, start becoming more of an expert in that area, one thing that I've noticed that Wordstream does is we allow them to be that expert. So we have people that kind of specialize in certain areas.
And it can be the go-to people internally. To say, so I can say, hey, I have got this customer. I don't have as much experience with this as I wanted to be able to deliver for them. Can you come help me?
Yeah.
Help this count? Absolutely. And it's not competitive. It's great.
Exactly. It's not competitive. And it's if there are other people that have that additional drive, they can literally go to that person and be like, hey, can you talk to me about what you've done in these accounts and your experience? I'm really interested in XYZ, if it's Microsoft advertising or if it's video ads or if it's I was running a Twitter ad campaign last week, and I ended up reaching out to someone internally who was like an expert in Twitter ads. And I was like, quick question.
Like, hey, come help me out.
Yeah. And they were so thrilled.
And that's a good point too, is for as a person, so, I think a lot about how I can help managers support high potential people. But if you're a high potential person that maybe either doesn't have a manager or isn't totally aligned with your manager, it's really important that you be thinking about that too. So you just talked about like, hey, are there internal experts in my organization that I can reach out to? What can I do proactively, even if, in this current season of my role, I have a very specific thing that I need to do and there's not a whole lot of stretch opportunity for me, or I've talked to my manager, it's just not, whatever. Okay, what can I independently do my own? Who can I tap into in my network internally, externally to learn something new?
And I think that's important to note, as, small businesses might not have either a manager or an internal expert that they can kind of tap into. I think that it's really a great opportunity for individual contributors to tap into their network and try to learn more, because especially in this super social environment that we live in, it's a lot of people I see all the time being like, hey, can we grab coffee? Like, I would love to do a knowledge share, or I would love to bounce this idea off of you. You have in my industry, for example, I had someone, I saw an event that they put on and I was like, this is absurd. I would love to talk to you about how you even thought about the approach to this, or where this idea, was conceived. And it was really, really valuable. And I think that those small moments kind of shape where not only where your thought process goes, but where your kind of career takes shape.
Absolutely.
And how things kind of snowball into a specialty.
Yes, absolutely. And not only snowball into a specialty, but if you're interested in shifting where your expertise is, having people in your network that you can learn from, that can provide you different opportunities than you might have in your current role is invaluable.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had 3 jobs out of college. All 3 of those I've gotten from personal relationships, which is awesome, because it's such a good opportunity to, one, get an inside look at, you can ask like the real questions. Like, it looks really great on the outside, but what about this? How are the benefits? Like, stuff like that. But you can also say, like, once you're there, you have an ally.
Yes.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. And it can shorten your ramp time too, right? Because you have 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
We talked about if you don't have a manager or something like that and you feel like you're not reaching your potential or there's more you want to do, if you do have a manager, or if you're on a small team, or if you work directly with the owner of a business, do you have like tips or suggestions on how people can kind of manage up to try to give themselves back some more opportunity? Yeah,
absolutely. So it starts with that self-awareness of what I was talking about before, which is based on where I am in my career, in my life, and whatever, what are the things that are most important to me to get out of this career, right? Yep. Is it right now I want to learn a new skill? Is it that I want to be promoted? Is it that I need more flexibility in my day?
Sure.
We talk a lot about flexibility here at Wordstream.
Yeah.
So self-awareness, understanding what you really want, then really understanding the business and the state of the business to the extent that you can in your role. And certainly in a small business, I would hope you would have a really good sense of where things are. But so that when you can go to your leader, you can go to your manager or the owner of the business and say, hey, look, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Here's where I understand our opportunities are as a business. Here's what I'm looking to get out of the next, 2 years, whatever.
Right.
Pick a time frame. Here's what I'm really interested in doing for my career.
Yep.
And my growth. And I wonder if, I see this opportunity. I wonder if that's a place where I can contribute more or in a different way. So basing it in
I love that.
What's happening in the business and what are the needs, because as business owners or managers of team, of function, whatever, like you're just trying to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're focused on growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so if a manager or if an employee comes to me and says, "Hey Lucy, I understand what your goals are. Like if I look at 2020 and what our vision is, I understand that you're trying to get this accomplished. I'm really interested in learning about this. I would like to be the person to help you accomplish that." I'm going to be like,
yes.
Now
you have a point person.
Right, please. Great.
You don't have to source someone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that can be really helpful. So leading with the business, understanding the business, seeing an opportunity, and then saying, okay, based on that opportunity, how does it align with what I'm trying to get out of the next few years of my career?
I think that's really great advice. And I think that as an individual or as someone who, works on a team, I think that it's easy to get kind of in the realm of this is what I want. This is what I want to do next. This is how I'm going to do it. This is who I want to talk to. And without kind of thinking about it in relation, you can kind of come up against some hard places, which can get frustrating, right? Because
Absolutely.
if you want to take this new thing on and you want to do something different, but there's not
a need for it,
yeah, then you're going to come up to an answer that you don't want to hear.
Yeah. The other thing that's really important for people to understand is that our day jobs still have to get done.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes taking on additional responsibility means taking on additional responsibility and not getting something immediately in return for it based on that whatever that context is. And so having when you think about where you are in your career and where you want to go, understanding where long-term you're going and how this fits in with the long-term plan. Like it might not help you out in the next 6 months, but will it help me out in a few years from
100%.
now? And that's also hard because it can feel like, well, I'm just sometimes it can feel like I'm just, doing more and like, where's my, but it's actually in the long run helping you out.
Well, the other thing I think that's important to note there is if you're taking on additional responsibility, again, your day job does need to get done. So taking on additional responsibility could mean you're taking on additional time investment.
Absolutely.
For work. So if you do feel like you want to take on more, you want to learn more, be prepared that might also mean that you're going to invest some additional time.
Yes. And hopefully that will give returns not just in longer term, but also like more satisfaction and engagement, right?
Yeah.
I know that if I'm learning something new, I'm way more engaged than doing the, things I've been doing for 10 years. Like, not that those things don't need to get done, but I want to learn something new and do something different. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's super valuable. So we've talked about managing up, but as a manager of a team or a business owner, how can we balance being hands-on and trying to teach them new things and like be engaged with them, all the while giving them kind of the space to grow on their own and not smother, but also not be too hands-off where they're like, I'm not getting any support here.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, super individual.
Yeah.
It starts with really knowing your employees and knowing what motivates them and what kind of guidance they need, right? Some people want more interaction and being able to bounce ideas off, and some people are just like, please leave me alone. Like, I'll come back and report back to you, right?
So like creating a relationship where you know what they need back.
Yes.
Okay.
And creating opportunities in your work, regular opportunities where you set that expectation, where you're asking your employees, what do you need from me? I'm expecting you to tell me what you need from me, right? And just creating that environment. It takes a lot and it has to be consistent, but that helps. There's this concept of situational leadership, which is actually a really helpful framework. It's about willingness and level of skill in a certain, it's a grid, right? And so you might have an employee, a high potential employee that you want to give more responsibility to. They're super willing to do it, but they have no experience in it. And so it gives you guidance on how to manage in that situation versus a situation where there's someone who has a skill but is not willing to do it for whatever reason because they're not motivated, right? So situational leadership is a concept that I encourage all managers to just go take a look at. You can find the materials anywhere on Google, but it's really helpful.
Cool.
Yeah,
that seems really helpful. It makes me think, additionally, as a business owner or as the president of a company or a CEO, when thinking about not only, I mean, hiring new people is expensive. People, not like in that you're purchasing people, but like people cost money. Labor costs money. So, and turnover is expensive. So when thinking about creating an environment that people want to stay in, you want especially your high potential employees to continue to contribute to your culture.
Yes.
And provide for your customers. How can business owners or people all the way at the top think about creating an environment, whether it's with HR or with their managers, to create an environment where people that might feel like they have more potential or might feel like they're being underutilized feel really comfortable and really succeed?
Yeah. It starts with managers. So we don't all have the luxury, I'm going to call it a luxury, to have an HR department or a people department, right? And the resources where we can help support that.
Right.
But for small businesses to really focus on their managers, what the values of those managers are, and how much they align with the organization or not, right? And how can, even if you don't have a learning and development department, how can you help those managers continue to improve their leadership skills? Because so much of, even in large organizations, it's great if you have learning and development opportunities and you have robust promotion, ladders and all this stuff, but it really comes down to the employee and the manager relationship.
Right.
Because there's a stat that like 70% of employee satisfaction is based on their relationship with their manager.
Wow.
Everything else is like,
That's a lot.
And that your relationship with your manager actually has an impact on your overall life satisfaction, not just your work satisfaction.
Wow.
Yeah. So I say, focusing on managers and what if you're the ultimate leader, if you're the owner or whatever, what kind of environment do you believe you want to create for people that work for you broadly? And how can you help your managers continue to create that environment? And the environment we try to create here is, like you said, hey, our highest potential people, they have an opportunity, they have a voice, they have an opportunity to take on more responsibility, step up, all that stuff. And so there's ways to create that through your company values. We have company value of transparency, right? We share a lot of information with our employees so that all of us have an opportunity to share an idea, right? Whereas maybe in some organizations, if you're not sharing as much, the people who are really on the front lines with your customers don't have all the context to be able to give you the best idea. But if we're providing all that context, it's helpful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it makes me think of some of the tools that we use as a company ourselves. We have a lot of training and development, one internally for all of our employees, like Greg Herman, who we're going to speak to later on in the season, conducted one around being an ally. Yes. But we also use a tool called Predictive Index for understanding how, I guess you could definitely explain this better than I can, but understanding how managers and their direct reports can best understand each other to have the most productive and meaningful relationship to be in the best work environment that they can be.
Yeah.
And understand each other a little bit better.
Absolutely. And Predictive Index is what we use here at Wordstream. There's many other sort of personality typing philosophies and tools out there.
EFNG.
MBTI. Yes, Myers-Briggs typing.
Yes.
INTJ. But
I have no idea. I just there's acronyms.
Yeah, lots of them.
Some guy told me once, he's like, I'm a CS whatever, and I was like, what?
I'm sorry,
are you okay?
Are you having a situation here?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I don't think you should tell me that.
Yeah, but any of those self-awareness tools are incredibly helpful for one-on-one relationships, but also team dynamics, right? And it's not that anyone is better than any other, but just the fact that you have them and you can say like, okay, so like let's have this conversation about how is it that you and I tend to approach problem-solving situations, and how might that be getting in our way or not? Where are your strengths? How can you help me figure out something that.
And that's like a very open and progressive way of thinking about using them. I think another way, just me personally, would be if I'm starting to get offended by some behavior, like if somebody's not looping me in when I feel like I should be looped in, or if somebody's, like not being as open or whatever it is, just understanding that might not be malicious. It might just be either
style thing,
a mistake or a style thing, or just like the way that they interact with people. They don't they don't want to bug you type thing. Like just understanding that it might not be, it's not you, it's the situation.
Yeah. And that the assuming positive intent is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say that's important too, particularly because something I hear in management circles is particularly if we think about high potential people, sometimes managers have the impression that someone's being pushy about their career or entitled or expecting too much, right?
Yeah.
And so, and that's not usually the case, right? Usually the case is someone just genuinely is interested in learning more and understanding more, and there's a difference in style or understanding or context. And so I also encourage, everyone to assume positive intent in the ways you were just talking about, but also in the ways of and diverse thought and talent, and what does that look like? Like your highest potential people, you might as a person identify certain characteristics that you say this is a high potential person. There's also other high potential people out there that are just not showing up in the same way,
right? So as vocal about it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually really important. We talked about managing up and going to your manager and saying, hey, I see this as an opportunity, it aligns with what I want to do, can I help? Or Lucy, I see you have this goal, let me take it. But that takes a lot,
and it takes, for me specifically, it takes time at a company or in a role to feel comfortable enough to say, hey, manager, there's this thing that I'm really interested in and I would love to spend my time there. I feel like I need to prove myself in what I was hired on. And then once I kind of get really comfortable there and feel like I can take on more, then maybe I can broach the subject or do a thing. But there are other people that are just listen, this is where I ultimately want to go. Let's align now so that things go that way.
Yeah. And I
admire that.
Absolutely. But there's a lot of research that shows that women in particular have a difficult time being that aggressive about their career, right? And so it could be that someone is taking more time because they believe they have to prove themselves more before they're asking for an opportunity, and that's actually super limiting to an organization. So one of the things we talk about here is how, and this was part of this ally training that we did over the summer, how do we ensure as managers that we're providing opportunity to everybody, right? Not just the usual suspects that you say I know Michaela's great at this, I'm just going to give her this project, but is there someone else that maybe isn't as vocal, or somewhere else in the organization who we should give that opportunity to?
Who might lend a different outlook or a different background that might make it more compelling for a certain audience.
Which is and it helps you scale the organization. Because if you just have your same 3 go-to people, sometimes that's really great, but if one of those people decides to move on, then you're left with a really big hole. And so how do you, of course, keep those go-to people engaged, but spread out the knowledge and understanding and institutional knowledge and skill?
So I do think that providing that environment where not only can we make sure that people that might not have been more vocal about expressing that interest have the opportunity, but maybe creating a space where there's a format for them to express that, or an anonymous pop-in type thing, or again going back to relationships, making sure that we're continuously coaching managers to make sure that they are providing a safe space for their employees to say, listen, I have this interest, and it's not an inherently negative thing, and making sure that they don't act like it,
absolutely.
Being excited and providing more opportunities for coaching, but still getting across that this role still has to be fulfilled until we can figure out a next step. So talking about Wordstream specifically, we've talked about the tools that we use for, making sure personalities are compatible and understanding how we work with each other. And we've talked about the people success team. Can you talk about specifically how Wordstream goes about providing more specific tactics about how Wordstream goes about providing an environment for success and making sure that people feel if they have a lot of potential, that they're being kind of recognized and given the ability?
Yeah, absolutely. So sort of everything we do is in that, is in an effort to fulfill that.
Awesome.
So it starts with the manager learning and development that we provide,
Yep.
right? Because it really does start with the manager.
And we do trainings there?
We do trainings,
Okay.
yeah. So we have monthly trainings where there's cohorts of managers that learn about sort of what you might imagine like standard, management things like delegation and career development, and also things that are critical to the business and the organization. So if we anticipate a significant change in something in the organization, we'll do a session on change management, right, to make sure everyone's squared away on that and prepared to lead. We also have other mechanisms where we ensure that there's transparency around opportunities in the organization. So, for example, and this wasn't always the case at Wordstream, but we now ensure that all opportunities are posted. Right, all internal opportunities, even if it's a new role or a different role. Yeah. When there are project opportunities, we try to make sure that we're engaging our senior leadership team, which is actually a group of people who are director level and above in the organization, so that they understand that there's an opportunity out there and they can highlight people on their team that we might not, 4 people in this one corner might not be aware of. Right. Right.
So when you talk about posting roles, where is that posted? Is it posted on like an internal website, or do we how do we make sure that everyone's aware of that? And then follow-up question, what do you mean by project?
Great.
Like role versus project.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I talk about role posting, I mean, hey, we have this opportunity. We're creating a new position in the organization, whether it's another of a position we already have, like we have a new account executive role open or marketing role open, or it's a brand new role that, hey, we're hiring a leader for this new business that we haven't. Right. So that is a real job description posting that we're intending to do a talent acquisition process for, and we use a applicant tracking system called Workable, and all of our postings go through Workable and are available on not only our career site, our external career site, but there's also email messages that go out to our internal organization, reminding people that they can refer someone, but also that these are available to them. Yeah, if you're interested.
I've seen both the emails from Workable, and I've also seen emails, like, I feel like a really great practice that we've adopted here is, as a hiring manager has a new role, they'll post it and they'll send it into the people success team, but they'll also send an email out to staff saying, hey, this role is open. This is what it entails. 1, if you want to refer someone, we would love that. And 2, if you're interested, please raise your hand and apply through Workable, which gives people an opportunity. If I'm on marketing, but my passion is, working with small businesses directly, and there's a customer success role, I have the opportunity to then apply to that role, or vice versa. Or if someone wants to go, to engineering or people success, I mean, there's a lot of internal change that we have here in terms of like providing opportunities for what people have interested in, which I think is awesome.
And that's another thing for high potential people. We talked about like the drive and the sort of entrepreneurship and giving people the opportunity to, and the understanding that there are things outside of their current team, job, whatever that they're, and at Wordstream, I think we do a good job of encouraging people to move to different departments. Like that's great. That's a success story. We love that. Right?
Absolutely. And I think also, 1, it allows people to learn more, challenge themselves, take a next step in their career, go closer to what, whatever they're looking to do or whatever their goals are. But additionally, what, coming back to, it's expensive to hire new people. Yeah. It's expensive to train new people. And it's expensive to backfill. So if we're using our internal resources, ramp up time slower, they know the business, they know the people, that drives there. So they're inherently like going to be more active.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really good point. Going back to defining a project versus a role.
Oh, yeah. So, I think in any growing agile business, there are always things that are outside of an established role or even business line, you might say, that you're experimenting on or trying, or you realize as you scale, like, oh, wow, we really do need to put more effort into being aligned in this particular area. So maybe there's a project team that needs leading, right? That is not I'm going to be the director of product for X product. We're not there yet. We don't have that role. Right. But we are going to try to develop this, this new product for this subset of customers. Right. And so can I raise my hand and be the person responsible for that? And so what does that look like?
Cool. And I can see that in a marketing standpoint as well. I mean, this podcast feels like a good example there. Like, we have a team of people that work on it. And it's none of us are like senior podcast creator,
Yeah.
so it feels like a cool alignment there that this is a project that we all work on, that we saw an opportunity and we feel like it would be a really great medium to, bring some internal knowledge and some great advice to people that are, looking to learn more about, managing or starting their advertising campaigns as a small business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So we have talked about quite a bit. Is there anything that, like a main takeaway or anything that you want small businesses or managers or business owners to really know when it comes to employee potential that you think that they just can't go without knowing?
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like motherhood and apple pie, so I apologize for this, but it is personal. It is deeply personal, and so you need to understand who's working for you, what is driving them, and how you can connect where they are in their career and their interests and what they need from their job and what you need to get done as a business. And that is nirvana when you can say like, this person is at this point and has this amazing talent or drive, and my customer needs this. So what can we do to align those two things?
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was a treat. I loved it. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow along on Twitter at Goal Talk Podcast. Join the conversation. Talk to us about what you're looking to hear about next and in season 2. And until next time, thank you.